The book of Revelation, written by the Apostle John, contains some of the most frightening and symbolic visions in the Bible, often referred to as the apocalypse of the end times. It reveals powerful prophecies about the final day of the world, judgment, and the ultimate fate of humanity. These 10 terrifying prophecies describe events like cosmic wars, devastating plagues, and the final victory of good over evil. They are not only warnings, but also bring hope for those who hold fast to their faith. One of the most haunting and vivid prophecies described in Revelation is the image of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. These four figures, each riding a horse of a different color, white, red, black, and pale, represent the powerful forces that, when they appear, will bring judgment upon the earth, as described in Revelation 6 verses 2 verses 8. The first horseman rides a white horse, symbolizing conquest, and appears when the Lamb opens the first seal in Revelation 6:01-1. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. We read that one of the 4 living creatures spoke with a voice like thunder, saying, "Come and see." His appearance brings terrifying and bloody conflicts, ravaging entire nations and driving humanity into despair. The first horseman rides a white horse, symbolizing victory, purity, and justice. The choice of this color may imply that the horseman is a conqueror, one who is always righteous and victorious. The rider holds a bow and is given a crown, indicating his status as a conqueror. The bow suggests preparation for battle or conflict, while the crown represents power and victory. The second horseman rides a fiery red horse, representing war, when the Lamb, symbolizing Jesus Christ, opens the second seal of the 7 seals. The color red is often associated with blood and violence, which aligns with the theme of war that this horseman represents. Revelation 6:04 records, "Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword." As he advances, scarcity and the collapse of resources spread like a raging fire, and famine strikes humanity, causing millions to suffer from hunger and despair. The large sword that the horseman holds is a symbol of war and the destructive power of conflict. The appearance of the second horseman signals a period of widespread war and bloodshed. He rides the red horse and holds a large sword, signifying the escalation of war and violence in the world. The turmoil and chaos represented by this horseman emphasize the necessity for humanity to return to God. The color of the horse, a red one, shows that its presence is often associated with chaos, violence, and bloodshed. This conclusion is not only drawn from the nature of the symbol, but also from the subsequent description, which serves as a clear and unambiguous statement. The third horseman rides a black horse, representing plague and disease. His appearance brings deadly diseases that spread through populations, leaving profound devastation. Revelation 6:05 verses 6 records, "When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, 'Come.' I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures, saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine." The horse that the third horseman rides is black, a color long associated with death, mourning, and famine. The scales he holds emphasize the deadly spread that can be measured but cannot be stopped throughout the world. Overall, the third horseman of the apocalypse is a powerful and chilling symbol of the devastating effects of famine and scarcity. The famine indicated by the third horseman is part of a series of events leading to widespread suffering. Famine often brings hunger, malnutrition, and increased mortality rates, severely affecting human life. His appearance sets the stage for the fourth horseman, who represents death. The fourth horseman rides a pale horse, representing death. Revelation 6 7. Revelation 6:7 records, "When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, 'Come.' I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth." The horse is described as pale, often interpreted as a sickly green or pale yellow color, traditional colors associated with disease and death. With this, the rider of this horseman is explicitly named Death. The chilling presence of this figure signals mass destruction as he collects countless souls and brings about the collapse of life as humanity knows it. These horsemen are not merely symbols, they reflect judgments that will be poured out upon the earth. The progression from war to famine and finally to death symbolizes the natural escalation of events leading to the last days. Death is the final consequence of the disasters represented by the first three horsemen. War and conflict, the second horseman, and famine, the third horseman, lead to widespread death, which is symbolized by the fourth horseman. So when will the end come? No human being knows this, not even the angels, but only God knows it. This demands that we remain vigilant, waiting with absolute trust in God's salvation. How about you? Do you think that the angels, apart from God, know when He will return to earth? Or do you have any speculations about this time? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below. The Great Tribulation is described as a period of unprecedented suffering that humanity will endure in the last days. It is a time of disaster, persecution, and unprecedented challenges, a phase that will test humanity's faith. All those who endure will find hope, as recorded in Matthew 24:21-22, where Jesus warns about this time. "For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again." If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. Although the Great Tribulation is defined by horrific suffering, there is still a powerful message of hope for those who remain faithful to God. Revelation 7:14 emphasizes the redemption awaiting the faithful. "These are they who have come out of the Great Tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." This Bible verse reassures us that even in the midst of trials, salvation and redemption are still available to those who hold fast to their faith. The Great Tribulation is not just an abstract concept, but also clearly reflected in the lives of believers who are persecuted all over the world today. Their perseverance and faith reflect the elements of this time of suffering. God's wrath is displayed through His 7 bowls, representing a series of terrifying divine judgments that will be poured out upon humanity in the last days. These bowls are described in Revelation chapter 16, carried by 7 angels, each given the task of bringing about catastrophic events on earth as part of God's final judgment against sin and evil. The passage begins with a powerful statement. "Then I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, 'Go, pour out the 7 bowls of God's wrath on the earth.'" Revelation 16, verse 1. Each bowl brings a specific plague or disaster, with increasing intensity and severity. The first bowl brings painful and harmful sores on those who bear the mark of the beast and worship its image. At that moment, the first angel brings his bowl near the earth, and immediately a terrifying change occurs. Those who bear the mark of the beast and worship its image, a symbol of rebellion against the Creator, suddenly suffer, and festering sores appear on their bodies. Those who had once proudly flaunted their mark are now forced to endure painful ulcers on their skin. These wounds serve as a painful reminder of the consequences of choosing deceit and evil over God. After the first bowl, the second bowl brings another form of punishment. Revelation 16:03 recounts the moment when the second angel pours his bowl into the sea, and the sea becomes blood, like that of a dead man, and every living creature in the sea dies. Revelation 16:04 records, "Then the third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. The second and third bowls turn the sea and rivers into blood, killing the living creatures in the water and polluting all water sources. Without water, life becomes nearly impossible for humanity, leading to widespread death and despair. In the face of these terrifying judgments, John's vision serves as a clear warning, urging us to heed the word of the Almighty and turn away from evil. The fourth bowl intensifies the heat of the sun, scorching the earth and causing unimaginable suffering. People cannot escape this terrible heat, and it powerfully demonstrates God's wrath. The fifth wrath plunges the beast's throne into darkness, symbolizing the complete collapse of the moral and spiritual powers of evil. This darkness brings chaos, confusion, and despair to those who follow the beast. The sixth wrath dries up the Euphrates River, preparing the kings of the east to gather for the great final battle at Armageddon. This prophecy initiates deliberate preparations for the ultimate confrontation between good and evil. The seventh wrath unleashes thunder, lightning, earthquakes, and unimaginable massive hailstones. These events shake the very foundations of the earth, signaling the climax of God's judgment and the end of this age. These judgments are not only terrifying but also serve as a clear warning to humanity, calling for repentance and a return to God before it is too late. Each wrath highlights the consequences of sin and rebellion, showing the depth of God's righteous indignation. However, even in these horrific events, there is hope. The book of Revelation reminds us that those who turn to God and seek His mercy can escape these wrathful judgments. This prophecy challenges us, forcing us to reflect and make our own choice to seek salvation while we still have the opportunity. This book also reminds us that the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. Therefore, if you believe in Him with all your heart, you will be saved. Do you believe in this? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to continue following the meaningful content we will bring to you in the future. In the book of Revelation, the mark of the beast is one of the most controversial and terrifying symbols. It represents the sign of allegiance to the one who opposes God and comes with eternal consequences for those who accept it. Revelation 13:16-17 describes this mark. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This mark is not only a physical symbol, but also a spiritual declaration of loyalty to the forces of evil. Revelation 14:9, verse 10 warns about the fate of those who accept it. If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives its mark on their forehead or on their hand, they too will drink the wine of God's fury. These verses highlight the gravity of the decision that humanity will face in times of trial. Will we hold fast to our faith in God, or will we fall to the pressure of a world ruled by the Antichrist? The most wicked figures in the book of Revelation are the beast and the false prophet. These two powerful entities appear as representatives of evil in the last days, working together to deceive and lead humanity away from God. They symbolize the ultimate rebellion against divine power and represent a terrifying spiritual danger to the world. The beast is described as a powerful and greedy force, holding immense power to subjugate humanity. Its infamous number, 666, is a chilling symbol of falsehood and rebellion against the perfect order of God. Revelation 13:8 calls for wisdom in understanding the meaning of this. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. This number not only identifies the beast, but also symbolizes humanity's flawed efforts to rule without God. The beast uses its power to control nations, spreading greed and forcing people to worship its image. The false prophet is described as a deceiving religious leader, supporting the beast's mission through false miracles and deceptive signs. The false prophet leads the people into worshiping the beast and accepting it. He appears persuasive with a false holiness, his ultimate goal being to lead humanity into deeper spiritual devastation. Revelation 19:20 reveals their defeat. But the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed the signs on its behalf. With these signs, he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. Both were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. These figures represent the forces of evil rising in the last days. They remind us of the danger of being led by false leaders who appear righteous but act against the truth of God. Although the power of the beast and the false prophet is great, their ultimate defeat at the hands of God's judgment is a powerful reminder of the triumph of good over evil. This prophecy assures the faithful that no matter how strong the devil may be, it will not prevail. The ultimate victory will belong to God and those who remain faithful to Him. Will humanity see through their lies, or will many fall victim to their deception? This question challenges us to always stay alert, rooted in the truth, and aware of the reality around us. The Battle of Armageddon is one of the most dramatic and intense events described in the book of Revelation. This confrontation represents the ultimate conflict between good, led by Jesus Christ, and evil, led by the beast. It is the final and decisive battle, determining the fate of the earth and ushering in the eternal kingdom of God. According to Revelation 16:16, the name Armageddon comes from the Hebrew word Har Megiddo, meaning the mountain of Megiddo. This ancient site in Palestine has long been the setting for many battles, making it a powerful and fitting symbol for the final confrontation between good and evil. The Apostle John vividly describes this grand battle in Revelation 19:11-21. He writes that, "The heavens opened to reveal Jesus Christ riding on a white horse. He is called Faithful and True, and he judges and makes war with perfect righteousness. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows except himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. God is not alone. He is followed by the armies of heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, riding white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, symbolizing the power of his word. And with this word he will strike down the nations. On his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords." The beast, the kings of the earth and their armies gather together to wage war against God and his heavenly army. They unite in their rebellion, but their efforts are in vain. The result of this battle is clear and decisive. The beast and the false prophet are captured and thrown alive into the lake of fire, the place of eternal torment and separation from God. The remainder of the enemy is destroyed by the sharp sword that comes from the mouth of the Lord. His word alone has the power to destroy the forces of evil. The birds of the air will feast on the flesh of the fallen, fulfilling the prophecy of the angel about God's great feast, where the enemies of righteousness will be utterly defeated. Armageddon is not only a story of destruction, but also a powerful symbol of God's final victory over the forces of evil. It marks the end of humanity's rebellion against God and the beginning of a new era of justice and peace. This frightening yet inspiring prophecy reminds us of the power and authority of Jesus Christ. It also challenges us to reflect on where we will stand when the final battle begins. Will we align ourselves with the forces of good, or will we follow the path of rebellion that leads to destruction? The destruction of Babylon is described in the book of Revelation as a city full of corruption, greed, and spiritual rebellion. Babylon is seen as the ultimate symbol of humanity's challenge against God, representing a society consumed by materialism and idolatry. Babylon stands as a warning of what happens when human pride and sin reach their peak. Revelation 17:05 paints a vivid picture of Babylon as a fallen woman adorned with wealth and power, yet destined for destruction. The name written on her forehead is a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. This description emphasizes Babylon's role as the center of immorality and false worship. Despite her seeming strength and allure, her fate is sealed. Revelation 18 vividly describes her downfall. An angel proclaims with a loud voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons and a haunt for every unclean spirit, a refuge for every impure bird and a resting place for every detestable beast." The wealth, influence, and false sense of security of Babylon vanish in an instant. The kings, merchants, and sailors on the earth mourn her destruction, not because of her righteousness, but because they can no longer profit from her riches. Their sorrow is one of selfishness, reflecting the emptiness and greed that Babylon represents. The destruction of Babylon happens swiftly and completely, symbolizing the end of those who oppose God's righteousness. Her fall is not just a physical event, but a spiritual cleansing, marking the collapse of everything that stands against God's holy plan. This prophecy reminds us that no matter how powerful or impregnable something may seem, nothing can stand against God's judgment. The destruction of Babylon is a powerful warning to reject greed and false idols. The rebellion and the story of Babylon speak not just about a city, but also about humanity's tendency to place trust in the wealth, power, and material systems of the world instead of in God. This challenges us to reflect on our own lives. Are we building the foundation of our lives on temporary things or on the eternal promises of God? Ultimately, the fall of Babylon reveals the triumph of divine justice. It reminds us that God's judgment is not only terrifying, but also just and complete. The final judgment is one of the most chilling and significant moments in the book of Revelation. It is marked as the climax of the story, a moment when every soul, without exception, will stand before God to account for their actions. This event marks the end of evil and the establishment of eternal justice. Revelation 20 describes this event vividly and memorably, beginning with the resurrection of the dead. "And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books." Revelation 20:12. This scene emphasizes the universality of judgment. No one is exempt, whether king, commoner, rich or poor, strong or weak. All will stand before God's throne equally. Every action, word, and thought will be brought to light, and each person will be judged according to what is recorded in the books. For those whose names are not found in the book of life, the result is a terrifying fate. They will be thrown into the lake of fire, described as a place of eternal torment and complete separation from the presence of God. Revelation 20:15 makes the solemn conclusion that anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. This judgment is final and absolute, representing the full extent of God's justice against sin and rebellion. For the unrepentant, it is a moment of unimaginable fear and sorrow. However, for those redeemed by the blood of Christ, the final judgment is not a time to fear, but a time to hope. It marks the end of all evil, pain, and suffering, and the beginning of eternal life in the presence of God. A moment when the faithful will finally see the perfect justice and love of God fully revealed. This prophecy reminds us of the seriousness of our actions and choices in this life. It challenges us to live purposefully, with faith and a desire to follow God's path. While the final judgment may evoke fear, it also brings the greatest hope, a promise of salvation for those who trust in God's mercy and redemption. The final judgment is not only the end of the old, but the beginning of the new. It is a turning point where God's eternal kingdom is established, free from sin and full of peace. This powerful prophecy reminds us to prepare our hearts, reflect on our lives, and ensure that our names are written in the book of life. After the final judgment, the book of Revelation presents a beautiful vision of hope and renewal, the creation of a new heaven and a new earth. In this perfect world, sin, death, and suffering will no longer exist, and humanity will experience the fullness of God's perfect plan. Revelation 21:1-2 describes this glorious promise in vivid detail. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. This vision depicts the New Jerusalem as a radiant and holy city, where God will dwell among his people forever. Humanity will no longer endure the pains of this broken world. The book of Revelation continues, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." This prophecy deeply reminds us that the struggles and sorrows in life are temporary. In this new creation, every sorrow, loss, and pain will be replaced by eternal peace and joy. The image of God wiping away every tear is a gentle assurance of his love and care for his people. The new heaven and new earth represent a world of complete restoration and harmony, where humanity is reunited with God in the way he intended from the beginning. This is the ultimate perfection. God's fulfillment of this promise reminds us not to focus solely on the challenges of today, but also on the hope of his kindness. It comforts us that God's plan is greater than anything we can imagine, offering the faithful a future full of peace, love, and joy in his presence. From the beginning to the last chapter, the book of Revelation proclaims a supreme truth. Jesus Christ is the conquering King. He triumphs over all evil. His victory is complete, eternal, and irrefutable, bringing hope to all who trust in him. Revelation 19:11-12 describes the vivid return of Jesus in power and glory. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and wages war. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but he himself. This inspiring vision reveals Jesus as the ultimate conqueror, wearing a robe dipped in blood, with the armies of heaven following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, symbolizing the power of his word to destroy evil and bring justice to the nations. On his robe and on his thigh he has written titles, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. In this final battle, Jesus defeats Satan, the Antichrist, and all the forces of darkness. He throws them into the lake of fire, ending their reign of terror forever. This is the complete triumph of good over evil and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom, a kingdom of righteousness, peace, and perfect justice. This prophecy reminds us that, no matter how dark the world may seem, God's victory is certain. His return will not only end evil, but will also fulfill God's promise of a fully restored world. For the faithful, this is the ultimate hope, a future where they will live in harmony with God, free from sin and suffering. God's victory over evil challenges us to stand firm in faith and trust in God's perfect plan. This is a promise that evil will not have the final word. The faithful and true God will reign forever. In times of uncertainty or fear, prayer strengthens our faith and reminds us of God's promise to guide and protect us. Thank you for watching until the end of this video. Through the haunting prophecies in the book of Revelation, we not only witness God's final judgment, but also recognize that, despite the terrifying trials, salvation and hope are always available to those who remain faithful to Him. The image of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the destruction, and the pain all point to one thing. Good will ultimately triumph over evil. And although we may face God's wrath, His mercy and salvation are always present, calling us to return with steadfast faith. We cannot overlook one important question. When the final battle approaches, which side will you stand on? Will you be ready to remain firm in your faith, or will you be swayed by the lies of the world? Don't forget to hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to explore more about the prophecies and truths that the Bible brings. May you always keep your faith strong and live in the hope of the Lord.